Today's guest, Idriss, a French Iraqi entrepreneur whose life has moved from professional basketball court in Paris to the French Special Forces.
Pleasure speaking with you.
I'm finding this really fascinating, but also perplexing because AI is coming to those marketplaces. I'm just curious because these opportunities have been able to reduce immigration from those countries.
You need to think AI first, rather than, thinking of AI just as a help.
What does education and especially higher education look like from 2025 moving forward?
Mid-level education, like tertiary education, it's not sure it's going to destroy the...
I can't imagine of an entrepreneur that has failed as much as you have. Psychologically, walk us.
Yeah, the concept of failing is a bit weird.
Very interesting. 2 to 3 years. What are some of the things that immigrant entrepreneurs should be looking for in terms of...
There is obviously a captations. Like AI allows you as an entrepreneur or as a CEO to capture more value by having like fewer employees. It's a fact. And therefore you might have a pyramid that is a little bit tighter than what we had in the past, which means that the concentrations of wealth might be even bigger. Obviously immigrants are impacted by this, but it's also, they're not more or less impacted than any kind of person already living in the, like in the country. I think it has very large consequences from a social aspect that needs to be taken into account.
Welcome to the Immigrant Pod. Obviously, I am your host. My name is Martin, and today we have the amazing Idriss Al Rifa'i. Today's guest, Idriss, a French Iraqi entrepreneur whose life has moved from professional basketball court in Paris to the French Special Forces to building companies across the Middle East. He's founded Fetch, helped scale Glover, and now leads Flow48, a fintech tackling one of the biggest challenges for small businesses, access to capital. Why do small businesses need capital, sir?
Look, I think it's a problem. I mean, thanks for having me, Martin, by the way, and just, pleasure speaking with you. I think, like SMEs are always the poor kids, it feels like in emerging markets, right? If you look at the GCC, but also like all across Africa, I think SMEs tend to represent about 60%, 70% of job creations, about 60% of GDP, but only 10% of bank lending. These are the numbers from the UAE. So there is a fundamental disconnect here because we all talk about SMEs as the engine of job creation, the engine of the economy. But despite that, they're being left out. They're being left out by banks. And therefore, it's economy 101. If you think about how to grow, having access to funding and access to loan is one of the most critical aspects. Actually, it's one of the critical aspects of the development of the US economy. There is tons of study about this. So I would say it's a bit of a schizophrenia, I think, by putting so much love, and everybody loves SMEs, but by the same token, they leave them alone when it matters the most. So that's a little bit about what we're trying to bridge, right? We're trying to bridge the trade finance gap of SMEs that is estimated over $1 trillion across emerging markets by providing loans. So an algorithm to assess the SMEs and to provide loans. We have both sides. And that's what we're trying to do.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So we have what we consider emerging markets. And then we have production markets. And we have what I would say all business models. What's really changing now that when you're looking to finance a small business enterprise that you're really considering as the basis for how to deploy your capital?
I think one of the key differences is CTS, right? The cost to serve. If you think about traditional banks, it's not like they don't want to do it. It's because funding SMEs has two problems. One is seen as an over-risky asset, as an asset class compared to other, more traditional or bigger enterprise. And then two, the cost to actually serve that customer, considering their cost structure and how they operate, is actually too high. There is a very simple example is that there is no point having a $5 loan, right? For an SME from a bank, it does not make sense, right? There is a fundamental cost associated with running the loan through the infrastructure that makes it suboptimal for the banks to be able to cater to that. Even though now, if you look at the whole economy, especially like the asset less, more and more startups, more and more SMEs are super asset light. So for all these reasons, it seems like the disconnect is gonna go higher and higher. So that's, I think, if you think about one of the things that changed is that, one, we need to reverse that paradigm and being able to have a cost to serve that is as low as possible to make sure that you can serve this long tail of SMEs that are actually looking for funding and are very eligible for funding, right? So that's a little bit about what we do. Obviously, AI comes as a big help. So all our underwriting algorithm or a lot of the, I would say, the checks and balances that we have within our own underwriting systems are done through AI, and obviously that reduces the cost to serve and being able to be very lean and operate in these markets. So these are the two things that change.
So, talking about how AI is allowing your organization to become a lean machine. If you look at what AI has been able to deploy in the last 10 or so years, and especially the last 3 years in the marketplace, and projecting, what the future is starting to look like, we obviously have a concern because part of the universe of people that we're speaking to are immigrants. So migration is really getting affected by technology and how technology is deploying in the marketplace. And so how should immigrants not just adopt AI, but how should they look at movements and where they want to apply themselves as a resource, especially when it comes to moving the economy?
It's a very good question. It's almost a philosophical or at least societal question, right? I think there is obviously a captation. It's like AI allows you as an entrepreneur or as a CEO to capture more value by having like fewer employees. It's a fact. And therefore you might have a pyramid that is a little bit tighter than what we had in the past, which means that the concentrations of wealth might be even bigger. But these are problems that are not especially tied to immigrants, right? It's a problem across the whole economy. Obviously, immigrants are impacted by this, but it's also, they're not more or less impacted than any kind of person already living in the in the country. I think it has very large consequences from a social aspect that needs to be taken into account, that are not taken into account if you think, or at least that are right now being run by 3, 4, 5, let's say, companies that are making all these decisions without having any kind of political counterpart on the other side, let alone ethical counterparts. But I think it will have to be regulated. It will have to be regulated at one point or the other. So I think the consequences will be adjusted by the regulator.
I'm finding this really fascinating, but also perplexing because last 15 or 20 so years, what we noticed was that the low entry jobs that especially, customer service jobs and stuff like that were ending up in India, Pakistan, the Philippines, Kenya, or South Africa. And now AI is coming to those marketplaces. I'm just curious because these opportunities have been able to reduce immigration from those countries into the Western world, right? And so now that AI is deploying in the same businesses that made a decision to hire foreigners in those foreign lands are now making decisions as to how they can deploy technology. For those who are left in the middle, in terms of government planning, foreign governments considering or even seeing this coming, but above everything, migrants that have relocated to other nations. For example, you're a great example, Idriss. You're in Barcelona, and so if I had taken one of those jobs and he allowed me to live a certain lifestyle, but I could migrate to a country as great as Spain and in a city like Barcelona, if my job is at risk, how should I as a migrant start preparing on how I change my resources so that I can still stay applicable in the marketplace?
Yeah, again, very good question. I think if you think about how AI is impacting right now work and the workplace, it's more So there is obviously a bit of job replacements, but there is a lot more of other job creations and job augmentation, right? And there is two very different things, right? There is obviously some jobs that are being impacted negatively, and you see that actually I was in China like 2 weeks ago, and you can really see it. You know, you can touch it. Of some of these jobs, including baristas or cleaning persons, are literally impacted by having, automations and AI. You obviously in the background, but you can. So there is definitely I would say that the clear impact on some of the jobs, but I would say that if it was the ghost distributions, right, like the core of the jobs are more being augmented by AI, and therefore not being able to keep up with the improvements of AI, and not being able to, or not being willing or able to augment your outputs through AI is going to be super detrimental in your career. It's a fact right now. There is, don't know if you saw, there is, I thought that was like one of the banks, JP Morgan, or like saying that you need to think AI first, rather than, thinking of AI just as a help. If you think about Excel, you're wrong. If you think about, you see what I mean? If you think about a Word document, you're wrong. You need to change the way you think to maximize now the usage of, of all the tools that are available. So going back to your point, I think that it's extremely critical for any worker to be up to date on the AI tools. And I think we come from, I think I'm older than you, but I think I come from a generations where the changes were not as rapid. The change is so rapid right now. I know that back in the days when you were 50, people were already thinking, for example, like a retirement and so on. Now you can't, like, the level of obsolescence is so quick that you cannot think that you're going to be able to free ride on your knowledge, in the next like 5 years or 10 years and still going to be relevant within the company. This is wrong. There is a study by Oxford that says that right now what you learn at university, it will become obsolete in the next 3 years. So like the velocity of the obsolescence is so high that you need to learn the tools to make sure that you're not going to have to be obsolete, in the near future. So I would say that's the biggest takeaway, that I would give to, biggest piece of advice that I would give to, to immigrants.
As an employer today, when you're looking to recruit talent to your organizations, what are some of the things that you've advised your HR departments to look into when you're doing recruiting?
Yeah, good point. I think as of now, our recruiting process has been somehow impacted, but we haven't seen the full-blown consequences of it. So let's put it that way. Had you asked me these questions about 2 years ago, I would have given you a very, very different answer. I just think that, again, the velocity of the change and how we need to assess people's appetites for dealing with AI and putting AI at the center of their job has changed radically, in the past few years, if not only in the past few months. So there is definitely, again, a velocity issue. So I would say two things to answer your question. One is that if you had asked me these questions 2 years ago, I would have said that the values, the soft skills is what matters the most. This is what, for example, at Flow48, the values, are super important, and they're one of the very few, red line when we're actually interviewing people. So I would say that's still the biggest piece. Any kind of hard knowledge can be learned, but attitude and values are more are tougher to learn, if not impossible. And now the second part of it is obviously appetites and appetence for AI, right? It's that needs to be measured, that needs to be checked, within the recruiting process. I would say these are the two key things.
Idriss, I was having a conversation yesterday with my son, and one of the things that I just realized out of random was that we were just talking. I said, when I was going to school, I was not allowed to bring a calculator in the classroom. And he says, now that I understand why you would have such a detest for mathematics when you were younger. Because for him, he's using as many tools as he can. We homeschool him, and we encourage him to use AI in finding solutions to some of the things that he's going through. if at that level we realize that there's so much change that is coming, yet when I look back, I know from talking to my parents when they started realizing that a calculator was going to be deployed, there was so much resistance to it, right? And then 20 years later there was so much resistance to the deployment of Wi-Fi and what it would do to the marketplace. What I realized then and now was that, and I'm yet to verify this, but just from observing, it seemed like when the calculator was applied in the marketplace, it created more job opportunities and more people found jobs. And Wi-Fi did the same thing. It did not reduce, but it actually compounded the market opportunities, right? And so for me, while there's a lot of data that may support that AI is going to reduce the amount of work that's available, for me I feel like it's also deploying more resources. And so what I think is individuals are going to be enabled to run smaller corporations, laptop corporations type of a deal, and less manual work. Am I wrong?
I think there is two things in what you're mentioning. There is one, the impact of AI, and when you were discussing with your son, and education, which is a whole different board game. Like the questions that you were mentioning, like should AI be being part of the test now, right? And how you use AI. There is two school of thoughts here. Is that one, you're here to test the ability of that person, of that student, as close as possible to what the real environment will be for that person, he or she, in the future. And therefore, not having recourse to AI seems stupid, because in the real life, in a way, you're going to have access to this. So your ability to master these tools needs to be challenged and somehow graded by the educational system. So I hear that's completely true. But then there is the best example. But then there is also like the issue of idleness. If all the answers are being given to you, including very detailed answers, are being given to you without you going through the process of recollecting information that you've had in the past and collecting ideas, which is exactly what synapses are doing within your brain, you're by default not gonna use your brain will atrophy, will go in atrophy and will stop developing. And I think the best example for that is actually the ones you're mentioning about calculator. Because we use a calculator not at the beginning. We all remember, when you were, I don't know, like 6, 7, no? When you do like your multiplication table, you need to go through this, and it's super important to go through this, and actually going through paper, and you do divisions and all that stuff. You do this by hand first, and then to increase the speed and the velocity of this, you use a calculator, but you know how to do it without. The problem is that if you start directly with AI, you're gonna make, there is a risk of your brain not developing fully and connecting ideas that are potentially groundbreaking. That's one. And two, you're not even going through the steps of learning. And therefore, there is a real risk of you subutilizing, us as a human being, subutilizing our brain in this, and potentially not being able to innovate in any other ways than through AI, which is it's a huge issue. Nobody really talks about this. It's super interesting, and there is a real risk about this. And then so that's one part of the thing, right? AI and education. The second part is a bit what you're mentioning. About, you think that calculator actually create more jobs and then they destroyed. And the reality is, yes, that's a fact. But then there is the whole issue of the velocity. Human being has always been resistant to change. There is in the 1890s, there is this guy called the Luddites. Luddites. The first machine within the 19th century that started replacing human being in assembly line. And there was tensions and even people that just started destroying the machines because they say they're losing our jobs. So the tension between human being and technology as replacement of my job, that is a way job defines people because they give them a living, a social conditions and so on, has always been core in the past 200 years, 150 years, okay, within the economy and within the social, framework. But now so one could argue that it's always has been there, and therefore thinking that things will go to chaos is an overstatement, because we've always been able to create enough jobs, for enough different jobs to absorb the gain of velocity and from the technology. The issue is that the velocity, there is no technology. So think about, the first industrial revolutions, the second one. So the first one with coal and so on. The second one with electricity, third one with internet. Like the changes were extremely slow. Think about the first one, the coal. The coal, and I'll go very quickly, right? The coal changes, if you think about how the coal completely shaped, the way, for example, the US think of it as a territory. It took more than 20, 30 years to actually go through the whole country and have an impact. Same with the oil, and how many years and decades did it take for people to actually buy a car, and so that it's widespread and then actually change behaviors. The problem is that AI is doing this in months. We've never been so wrong on the velocity. We always say, I don't know if you saw some of this video of AI 5 or 6 years ago of Will Smith eating spaghetti, right? And it's crazy how bad it looks. So it means that the velocity of the changes in the past few years is incredible. And we keep on saying, oh yeah, but AI is not going to be able to do surgery. No, they're doing surgery right now. There is actually studies that shows that AI is actually better than AI plus doctors. And then we say, oh yeah, but AI is never going to be able to do art. It does. So all the things that we believe that is not possible is actually happening. So the velocity is the real problems, because it takes time for a social framework to adapt to change. And now it feels like it's all thrown to garbage, and there is not enough time to adapt.
The thing I can't get out of my head and to me holds so much truth is, what does education, and especially higher education, look like from 2025 moving forward, right? We know the cost of education is going to come lower because of AI deploying. We understand that part. But how do we choose our majors? How do we choose what's not going to be relevant in the future?
It's a super tough question. I'm not sure I have the answer of that one. I think because I'm also questioning myself, I think the impact is extremely high. Now, 2 or 3 data points, right, that I can add. One is that as much as it's going to disturb mid-level education, tertiary education, it's not sure it's gonna destroy the institutions of knowledge. Think about the Yale, the Harvard, or whatever of this world. Actually, the applications towards top university has increased in the past few years, because we realized that going through the best college or university is as much about, and we know that in the back of our head, is as much about what we learn than the people we know. And that's why, if you think about, like Stanford, for example, but it becomes almost like a YC combinator. You see what I mean? So it's just like university is going to become 2 things. One, you're going to learn the tools and you're going to be at forefront of using AI, but also some of that knowledge. Okay, let's say that's 50%, or let's say maybe even 30%. And that 70% is that you're going to be around people that are as driven as you, and that are basically, and we know that this dorm or whatever, this kind of interaction, social interactions, is what actually is super critical in a career. We all know how important it is. So in a nutshell, I would say that the mid-level, like the average university might be completely, the value proposition of them is really questioned. There is this founder of Crimson Education, super interesting. He's done I don't know if you've seen on his LinkedIn, but he's been through 16 university or crazy. This guy is from Yale, Stanford, and then in the UK as well. And that's what he was mentioning. He was mentioning that higher education will be displaced in the fact that the medium level will have to reinvent itself, and the top education will still remain a sign for recruiting.
For SMEs that are looking to grow, to develop, move from idea to implementation, from implementation to acquisition and diversification, what are some of the things that organizations like yours are looking in an organization to be able to fund them?
I mean, if you like, it's more the problem we're solving is not so much about providing some kind of a very unique way of assessing the data. It's more that our algorithm and the way we treat SMEs is finally closer to the reality. You see what I mean? Like, so, like, if you, like in the previous days, or let's say right now, even, let's say you're a lawyer, and now you're leaving your big law firm and you're starting your own company. No bank will give you a loan, even though you need a loan to start because you need to start an office or whatever, desk. There is obviously upfront costs for whatever reasons there is. And the big question is, okay, what's your track history? You don't have any. Have you started business that are similar? No, I'm a lawyer, so I haven't. And then 3, what's your assets? And then I just have my laptop and my brain, right? So like this kind of business are completely ill-fitted as of now for being, to receive any kind of funding, even though at the beginning, this is actually the time where you actually need it. You don't need it, 1 year later, 2 years later, when you're half successful or even more. So this is a little bit about what we do. There is, I think we have a much better matching engine to understand whether the company is viable, whether this type of business, because obviously there is tons of data now available out there. And obviously if you do this with a person, it's a lot more complicated and it takes more time. And therefore, what's the point of doing this if the loan is $10K or $5K, right? It becomes too cumbersome. But now, again, through AI, you're allowed to have access to capital and in a much better way. And actually there is this podcast that was like talking about it. I think that was from the A16Z people, like Idriss and Horowitz, and they were mentioning that all this underwriting, like from a fintech perspective, is now being done by AI. In the future, the decisions from the SMEs to actually get capital will be done by agents themselves. So you will have agents to agents talking to each other to find the best source of capital. You see what I mean? And obviously we can laugh and think that, it's destroying jobs, and which is also true to some extent, or at least destroying tasks. I don't know if it's destroying jobs, but it's destroying tasks. But in a way, there is no better matching of supply and demand by having just, 2 agents talking to each other and making sure that one agent can talk to 100 other agents in the same day to find the best deal, which is something that were not humanly possible. So you see what I mean? I think it's more a better matching.
Very interesting. So a business owner should be able to pivot very quickly, should be able to read market changes very quickly, and they should be able to deploy their capital where it's necessary. For you, those tools are natural, right? Because you're a professional basketball player, you're special forces, you learned to react and to take action immediately with or without the necessary data, but to be able to protect a life, to be able to make a significant change, right? So for immigrant entrepreneurs that are getting into the marketplace now with the changes that are happening because of AI and also the marketplace, what are some of the necessary skills that they need to be able to be proficient in?
I think you were mentioning that a bit earlier. I think the level of knowledge now that you can find online is groundbreaking, completely. So therefore, there is a lot of self-learning that you can do, and the certificates are a good way to validate those. But just knowing becomes so much more important than showing that through a diploma or a degree or whatever. So I would say having access to online resources about how to build agents, how to include agents at the core, or place agents at the core of your work, of your daily work is super critical. So that's one part of it. The second part is more on the value side, and I think immigrants by nature have a tendency to be entrepreneur. because they're out of the status quo, they're changing, or at least they're trying to make a place for themselves. And I mean, at least for me, this is something that we share quite a lot, I believe, and therefore the impetus, right, the drive to succeed and to always wake up in the morning is extremely high with like immigrants, a lot higher than other subsegment of the population, and therefore you need to take advantage of it, right? This inner energy to be able to drive and build. So yeah, I would say these are the two key elements.
I can't imagine of an entrepreneur that has failed as much as you have. But you you giggle because you're like, okay, fine, I've taken the fails, but I've also had a bunch of wins. So psychologically, walk us.
Because failing, man, the concept of failing is a bit weird. It's for me, like, so there is two things here. Is that one is that when you start companies, when you build companies, there is the concepts of failure and understanding that failure is just so close to success. And I know it sounds cliche, but there is no way, going through what we've been through, and building companies, that you can be self-confident enough for you to think that the success was written. It's not written. There are elements that you're in control: product market fit, how good is your product, the timing of you going to the market. But there are so many elements that are outside of your control. There are so many startups, like the list is like endless of startups that had the right product at the wrong time. And it's not something that they had in control, right? Like they could have run the company in the perfect way. It's just the market is just not ready, and therefore some of the metrics are wrong for them to be able to scale, and therefore the company dies. So, like, I think I would agree with you that I failed probably like so many other times. It's exactly like the Michael Jordan quotes, why you're taking the last shot is because I failed more than anyone else. And I think that's very true. It's only by trying through fire, going through the mistakes, readjusting, that you're gonna get better for the last shots, or whatever the startup that you're gonna build. So yeah, failure should be demystified. It's a path. If you're not failing at any point in time, you have not learned. And it's crazy, when you're a kid, like, it's not a problem of failing, right? I don't know if you remember your concept, your relationship with the concept of failing was so different when you were a kid. And even I'm sure now you, with your own kid, you encourage him or her to fail, isn't it? Like failing is good. You try, you stretch. And now when you're an adult, for some reason, it changes. It's like, oh, failure is not accepted. How come we completely in agreement when you're a kid that failure is part of the process, and then all of a sudden it's not?
I have a very weird relationship with failure, right? Because growing in Africa, failure was not interpreted the way we do interpret it in the US, right? Like, the more you fail here, the more we're like, okay, keep trying, keep trying, keep going. For us, failure meant something else. It was more of a gloom and doom type of a experience, right? And so the way I'm teaching my son, or the way I speak about failure with my teammates, is a completely reverse of what growing up as a failure or experiencing failure as a child was. That said, though, what I've learned is that there are certain things that you learn as you're moving forward in life, and you use those as a bridge to get to where you want to go. But sometimes some things hit you so hard in the belly that they hold you back, right? For that instance where, for you, for example, a teammate has been injured and you still have to get him out of the battle. For a business that you completely believe in and you know for sure it's the right time for this business to be deployed in the marketplace, but it's still not clicking. What are some of the things that you're like, I still have to deploy more capital into this to continue. I have to pick up my battle buddy out of the war zone to bring him back to life, because I know with him we become better. What are some of the things that you're taking or you have learned that allow you to say, I am going to do this no matter what?
Man, I think this has a lot more to do with your own relationship with efforts and success and failure, right? So I would say like multiple things. I would say like one is there is this quote from Mike Tyson that says that it does not, like, nobody remember how many times you went to the grounds. What matters is we're standing at the end, right? So here you're not talking about failure, you're talking about harshness, which is two different things, because failure the idea of failure comes with there is nothing after that, while harshness just means tough patches that you need to go through for you to be able to reach, like whatever objectives that you have, which is very similar to athletes and delayed gratification, and like the way we think about delayed gratifications, right? Like, why do athletes wake up at 5 a.m. and just do all this stuff and control what they eat, like throughout the day? They're living like monks, right? And they're doing all of this in the hope that they're gonna get 5 seconds of glory at one point in their life. So it's in that sense it's very similar, but it's not the relationship to failure, it's the relationship to harshness. And the relationship with harshness, going back to immigrants and so on, it's something that we're, by essence, we have a thicker skin, and therefore we need to use that to our advantage. And being able to, we've all have been not white enough or not speaking French good enough or whatever that thing, and that makes our skin thicker, and therefore you're more likely to get up the next day rather than somebody else. I really think that this is one of the key things, that in my DNA that actually pushed me to still believe when people stop believing. You need to be inner driven, otherwise it's not going to work.
So there's these ups and downs that periodically happen, right? Part of those causes of that would be things like COVID or war. So for people who have been immigrants for a while in Western Asia, they are being affected currently by the war that's going on between Iran, Israel, and the US. For those immigrants who are surrounded in those places, because you've deployed your capital in that market, how are you adjusting, supporting those businesses, and how are you guys talking to them to still continue to stay in the game to be able to win after the fight?
Yeah. So we're present in both UAE and South Africa, and obviously the conflict is impacting both economies quite differently. I would say the UAE here, and what because we're talking about Western Asia, I would say that the UAE is a bit of a case that is a bit different than any other economies. The reason being, especially for our business, there is a lot of what we call flight risk. What we're doing is unsecured lending. We're believing in I wouldn't say in the entrepreneur, but in the SME owner, in the entrepreneur, in the family business. But there is a fundamental, I would say, hope or belief that these families will stay and keep on building, which is a really question mark in this kind of in these periods. Obviously, when you're in Dubai, and and I love Dubai, it really is not the problem, but it's the city of immigrants by nature. In Dubai, there is 7% of Emiratis, right? So 93% of the population is immigrants, and the whole city has been built by immigrants and is being run by immigrants. So I think in that sense, Dubai is a very different city compared to the rest of the world. But the flight risk is so high that it's impacting our business quite a lot, because we all know that if things get really, really, really tough, you might have people going back to their home place. So I would say that this is I wish I could say something different for the UAE, but this is very clear that there is, I would say, a systemic risk here in the UAE that you don't have in Saudi, for example, where people tend to be here for generations. In Dubai, you start having people like immigrants that are second generation, third generations of immigrants. But let's be honest, right? If you look at the pictures of Dubai in the 70s, you had one towers and one highway. I don't know if you remember these pictures. Again, the velocity is so different. So how much deep-rooted some of these guys are is a real question mark, and that is a real danger for us.
Very interesting. So from where you're sitting, when you look at the world of enterprise, if you're projecting the next 2 to 3 years, what are some of the things that immigrant entrepreneurs should be looking for in terms of diversification, skill sets, and their resources?
Diversification of what? Of skill sets? I think investing, I would say two things, right? And they're really in line with what I was saying before. I would say that one, you really need to learn the tools of AI because it can multiply you and multiply your outputs by like 5x, 10x compared to what we used to do. And I think that's a chance. It could be seen obviously as a threat and as a risk, but honestly, as an entrepreneur, that's great, because we all remember when you start a business and then you have to go through the accounting, and like there is tons of tasks that you're not super equipped to do, and therefore you recruit, and therefore you increase your burn, and therefore you increase your stress. You tend to have less of that with AI. So I would say one, really spend some time in mastering that skills of what's out there on the AI side. And then two, there is no better time to be an entrepreneur. It's the barriers to entry of technology, it becomes extremely low. Like the building agents, and like you can really build a business in a matter of a day or two, which used to take months, if not more. So there is no better time to innovate. And it's okay to fail fast, going back to what we're saying, is that you try like 5, 15 businesses at the same time, 10, let's say. And then 10, like your relationship to failure is gonna be so different. If 2 of them fail, you're still gonna think that it was a failure? You see what I mean? Like it becomes completely irrelevant. So the velocity again of your learning and how entrepreneurs actually approach some of their ventures needs to be duplicated, and therefore, there is no better time to innovate and become an entrepreneur.
Very interesting. For an immigrant like yourself, having lived in Dubai, where 93% of the population are immigrants, in the US on the other side, what I've noticed was in North America, most immigrants deploy their resourcefulness or their businesses into the brick and mortar, and those businesses are getting to change rapidly as AI is coming into the marketplace. For immigrants, what are some of the changes in small businesses that are behind a wall? What are some of the changes they should be looking to implement very rapidly into their businesses for efficiency?
For efficiency? In what sense? What do you think?
Reduction of capital deployed, increasing profit margins, improving customer experience.
Yeah, all of this. I mean, obviously, like, again, as an immigrant, but more as a business owner, really. Obviously, like some of the technology and the progress allows you to be thinner, leaner, and therefore potentially increase your margin. I think more importantly, it allows you to test products and services at the scale, at the speed, at the velocity, again, that was not possible before. You can run a new product and new services and push that into the market and see what's going to be the acquisition, see what sticks in a matter of days, which used to take months, if not weeks. Okay, but at least weeks. So it's more, I would say, the impact on margin is real, but the impact on new product go-to-market is even bigger.
What are some of the lessons you've learned about supply chain that will give immigrant opportunities in South Asia and in North America, given the fact that we learned a lot about supply chain, especially after COVID?
Supply chain is impacted. I haven't seen it such a huge impact. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I need to think about this one. I think it's not that clear. I don't think there is a clear things that on the supply chain. I don't think supply chain should be treated differently than any other type of sectors. You see what I mean? I think that everything that we discussed, previously applied dramatically, in the same way across all industries. It's just a matter of time. And if we think that some of these industries going to stay protected forever, we're going to be wrong again, because the velocity, we always have been wrong in assessing the velocity of the changes because we always think that it's going to take longer. So yeah, nothing special, other than what we discussed.
Very interesting. Idriss, we're getting to the top of the hour. Please tell our listeners where they can find you on social media, please.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're Flow48. You can find us anywhere on LinkedIn or through the web, through agents as well. So, yeah, we're present in 2 countries, UAE and South Africa, and happy to help anytime we can.
For those immigrant entrepreneurs in the UAE and South Africa that are looking to connect with the organizations, where can they find you?
Oh, they can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best way. Find me on LinkedIn, send me a message. It happens a lot, and I think that's the best way.
Excellent. Idriss, researching you, we found you had a pretty decent presence on YouTube and other platforms. If you had an opportunity to speak to immigrants, for 5 to 15 minutes, what's the one message you want to impart?
The one message that I would have is that it's exactly what I was saying. I think being an immigrant can be a huge advantage on how we attack entrepreneurship and how we approach entrepreneurship. So let's not think that that it's only to our detriments. I think that there is a few traits that we learn and we develop, that we hone by being an immigrant, that are key, key qualities of successful entrepreneurs.
When you talked about Princeton and Oxford, there was something very interesting there that you say that I would like to revert to, and that was relationships and building relationships in the marketplace. For immigrants that are looking to get into the marketplace, that are already in the marketplace, that are looking to diversify their portfolios, speak to them about the importance of building their networks.
It's super critical. I mean, building your network is so important. I think there is nothing more important, almost, or maybe it's the second most important thing that you can own, one being your core skills and so on. But it's so important. I think that especially as an immigrant, where your network tend to be not as deep or as broad as others, this is something that you need to work on. And there is tons of ways now to do it, right? It's not like it used to be very difficult to approach some of these circles, but I think that again, the barrier to entry to enter those become much lower. So yeah, invest some time, some of the money, but to be able to be in those circles, I think it's super critical.
Thank you so much for making the time to come to the Immigrant Pod. I am so grateful, dude. You've been fantastic, fast. You got me thinking. I love it. So thank you again and welcome. We wish you all the best in everything you do. Listen, I truly enjoyed our conversation, and I'm looking forward to the next time we get to reconnect and have a conversation again.
Thanks a lot, Martin. Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks a lot. Great chat.
All the best, buddy. Thank you. Let's talk soon.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Bye-bye. Ciao.